Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Combeluzier, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar focuses on New Placer Dome Gold Corp, which has a portfolio of assets located in the Tier 1 mining jurisdiction of Nevada, including its flagship asset, the Kinsley Mountain Gold Project, which hosts Carlin-style gold mineralization with total resources of over 500,000 ounces of gold. The company's other assets include the Bolo project, also hosting Carlin-style gold mineralization, as well as the Troy Canyon project. On Friday, the company announced that it has entered into a binding letter agreement to be acquired in an all-share deal by Corp Minerals, Inc. Importantly, the transaction is supported by Liberty Gold, the company's largest shareholder. Today, I have with me on the webinar Max Sally, CEO and director and founder, and also Chris Raffel, who's a director of New Placer Dome. The format of today's webinar will be comprised of two parts. In the first part, Max and Chris will be discussing the recently announced transaction and providing a corporate update. In the second part, we'll take your questions live. So please send them in using the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then get into the presentation. For New Placer Dome Gold, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the New Placer Dome corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for New Placer Dome specific disclosures. So now I'll turn it over to Max and Chris to update you on New Placer Dome and what you have to look forward to.
All right, thanks, Taylor. Usually I go through the whole presentation and kind of discuss everything, but obviously circumstances happen on Friday where, going through everything seems to be something maybe I'll put in the back burner just because I really want to discuss what's happening now. So first off, we recently closed the financing, almost $5 million, and we were financing at about a $7.2 million market cap. So we raised about 75% of our market cap in cash in this gold market, which was very difficult to do. It took about 2 months for us to get it done once we started with the original announcement. We built it with a very good book, very good investors, very good brokers, and some very good funds. Once that was essentially completed, we were almost immediately slapped with an LOI for a takeover from Corp Minerals. Corp is a company that we know of. They are essentially a metals group company. So the other companies that are involved in that include Benchmark Metals, Thesis, all in the Golden Triangle. And they are very well aware of our assets. One particular asset that they were very keen on was Bolo, which is our secondary asset. Based on the money we raised, which the majority of the money was raised for our flagship Kinsley Mountain Gold Project, which you see here in the background. That's what we're currently doing work on. We were in a situation where we were deciding how to deal with the secondary asset, whether that was to drop the asset simply because we had to make quite a large expenditure by December 31st, and then focus strictly on Kinsley, or find a way to move that asset. With the contract that we had, we really couldn't move it. And so when we sat down with Corp and kind of came to terms to do a merger, we agreed. And I said, well, if you do a convertible debenture, essentially, where Corp will loan us the money for our secondary asset, and once the transaction completes, that loan gets washed. If for whatever reason the transaction doesn't go through, that is essentially turned into a private placement. And so now that money that Corp lent us will now just turn into shares of New Placer. So the risk for us financially was almost zero. And when we presented this offer to Liberty Gold with everything and the significant increase in price, it was about a 61% premium to our financing price at 8 cents. It seemed like a good transaction. And so Liberty Gold is on side. They're our largest shareholder, 15.3%. Nothing essentially changes. Essentially what we're doing is merging two vehicles in an all-share deal. And so now we're both doubling our market caps at least. And it combines expenses. You're adding properties in British Columbia and Nevada, two of the greatest places in North America to work. And it's having a better team altogether going forward with the support of Liberty Gold. And so we saw this as a win. So far, the market's seeing it as a win. Our stock is up 18% today. Copar stock is up as well. And we've had a lot of inbound calls from investors and shareholders, especially the ones that participated in our recent financing. Having a 61% premium over in the last 2 weeks has been pretty good for anyone investing in the gold space. And so that's kind of, how that transaction came about. I will kind of just go to our share structure right now. So this is updated essentially following the last financing. There's about 170 million shares out. With the current stock price, it's about a $16 million market cap. And that will, once this deal is done and Copar does also raise some funds, we'll have a combined market cap of about 50 to 60 million. So that's a significant increase. And I think that's what you need going into the next gold market is you got to get big and you got to get big quick. And so all these juniors are kind of stuck in this range where you can't really move. And I think this will help us significantly. We also had some very good support from Liberty Gold insiders, from certain funds, including Dundee's Ventures Fund out of Toronto, and just a really good new list of individuals, people that have already purchased stock or participated in previous financings. And, just kind of a reset for the company. I'm going to get to Kinsley quickly just so we can talk about Kinsley, and then we'll get to Bolo and we can explain why Copar really liked Bolo. So Chris, why don't I let you handle the Kinsley?
Sure, yeah. So Kinsley, as we know, obviously our flagship asset for a reason. We're about 535,000 ounces of indicated and inferred, anchored by this high-grade Secret Canyon shale resource of that includes an indicated portion of 300,000 ounces at just over 6 grams. So pretty amazing for Nevada. We talk about typical oxide gold projects. They're sub-gram typically, and those are this is a significantly higher grade resource in comparison. And we've got lots of opportunities to expand, and we demonstrated with our drilling, our prior drilling last year, and that we have opportunities to expand the existing oxide resources and the sulfide resources at depth. And the exploration we're doing now, we've recently released that we've expanded, done a significant geophysical program, IP geophysical program that is going to develop our targets for 2022. Just a quick image here showing that on the bottom left there, that's our high-grade Secret Canyon resource, and then our mixed oxide and transitional material at surface that balances out that resource. So lots of potential here. Obviously, there's the high-grade portion, which is very attractive. That's our exploration target moving forward. Is these high-grade, structurally and stratigraphically hosted targets that are so compelling and have these opportunities to add significant amounts of ounces of discovery. Just a quick shot of our 2020 drilling. Obviously, some very high grades. The existing western flank zone hosting our high grade, our main pit north oxide target, and secret spot targets. We talk about certainly these western flank drilling was peripheral to the main body of the resource, so we're looking to expand that. We showed that on the northwest and northeastern sides, there's opportunities to expand that existing resource. These numbers, just 10 grams over 6 meters, 15 grams over just under 5 meters. Those are very interesting numbers that show that there's opportunities to grow that resource. Main pit oxide target, just under 10 grams over 7.6 meters. This is 75 meters outside the existing oxide pit shell. So this really just demonstrates that even notwithstanding the high-grade sulfide targets, we have these high-grade oxide, incredibly high-grade oxide material that is that we can also add.
Chris, can you turn up your microphone a bit here? I just got a comment. It's hard to hear you, so just turn it up. Turn everything up, please.
I'm not sure what else I can do. So Secret Spot, that was a new discovery this year, and 1.77 grams over 25 meters. That's new oxide material. It's not within the existing resource, and basically we have two or three drill holes into that right now, and we'd be looking to expand that in future drilling next year. Just a quick shot of the sort of drill grades, our geological model. The big thing to really take away here is two shale horizons host the bulk of the ounces of mineralization: the Dunderberg Shale at surface and the Secret Canyon Shale at depth. Just kind of these are little quick highlights of our 2020 drilling. This is what we call our greater resource area. The gold grade shells in red highlights these northwest trending structural control of the historic heap leach oxide production, the western flank zones, and then to the south, our transverse fault, which is our Secret Spot new discovery area. Moving on. So on to some new things. So this is some of the work we're working on right now. This is showing our IP in the greater resource area. So this is going to be instrumental in us defining drill targets going forward. If we're looking for these high grade shale hosted new discovery zones, we feel this is the way forward. What we saw in 2020 was that the IP signature of the western flank zone was distinct, and that mineralized shales had a subtle chargeability increase compared to non-mineralized shales. And we're looking to investigate that thoroughly through the greater resource areas. So basically complete coverage now of the area, and we've demonstrated chargeability anomalies across this grid that we look to prioritize, and then moving northward into underexplored areas of the property as we move through the year here. Some of these high grade mineralizations, these are all historical intercepts from Max, maybe you could say a few things about this, but certainly this is what Pilot Gold, our predecessor of this project, these are some of the grades that got everyone excited initially and led to the 2015 resource initially of this deposit. So something just interesting to note. So essentially what happened was when they discovered the Secret Canyon of the western flank back in 2012, with these grades, it took the predecessor company, Pilot Gold, from a $25 million market cap to a peak market cap of $250 million market cap when gold was $13.50. So that is a significant increase. That's obviously a brand new discovery, and that's one of the reasons, especially with these grades in Nevada, and also being economic, because the met work, it does float a nice concentrate. So despite these being sulfide, because of the concentrate, this is this is kind of the juicy stuff. And so what we're doing now with all of our geophysics is, once all that's done, it is a slower process because we're doing about 81 kilometers worth of lines on essentially 20% of the property. If we can generate new targets and generate another one of these western flank zones here on a different part of the property, that's where you're really going to see your kind of home run again. And so that's been the consensus with the following financing: was get all the geophysics done, show all the potential targets, do a site visit, have everyone kind of come together and say, hey, where can we get the best bang for our buck and find more of these? Last summer, we drilled 25 grams over 5 meters on top of the resource, so the shallowest part of it. So that can easily fit into here. But you see some stuff here, 30. I think we had some really good intercepts, 46 grams, right? And so that's what we're trying to find. We did have an idea where let's go and drill around the oxide discovery we had, drill 10 holes around that. But what's the market really going to give us value for, especially with gold doing what it's doing? And I think it's going to be the home run. We are able to go and drill a lot of shallow oxide and probably get some good grades, but it's, as a shareholder, as someone who's spent more than his salary buying stock, and as someone who knows a lot of our shareholders, they want to see that too. And I think this is really, if we can hit more of these numbers, that's what's going to get people excited, even in the current gold market. And if we can hit those going into a better gold market, being all cashed up, which is one of the reasons we're doing this merger, there's where you're going to see your significant upside for shareholders.
why don't we just get right to Bolo here? So Bolo was our listing asset. When we went public in 2019, Bolo was our flagship asset. It's amazing. They had an intercept here, 1.33 grams oxide over 133 meters near surface. And that hole was drilled and then nothing kind of after that. And so we were thinking to ourselves, well, that's a heck of a hole. Why isn't anyone followed up with that? And that's exactly what we did. And Chris can kind of explain why we love Bolo so much. And it's a project that I'm glad with this transaction we're able to keep. My job as a CEO is kind of to how do we manage risk and manage capital. And for us, being able to make sure our shareholders can hang on to this asset is something I'm very proud of. And we'll be going down to Bolo next week for the week to make sure everything's going.
So Max, in terms of Bolo, obviously, this 1.33 grams over 133 meters. I mean, those numbers are, that's an inclined hole. Those are significant widths, and those are kind of somewhat of the framework that we look to in terms of other grades. So our first drill program that we executed on the project in 2019, on this slide here, just under 14 meters at 5 grams, and certainly a significant result. And here we go in sort of hole 4 here, 122 meters of 1.2 grams per ton. And in addition to a deeper intercept of 12 meters of 3.3, so some higher grade zones, some new zones at depth that we haven't been seeing. But these kinds of grades in this 85 to 130 meter width, this is defining the width of the South Mine Fault Zone, which is the main target. We view it as an emerging resource effectively, and that's been the objective of the 2019 and 2020 drill programs there. We look to go back there and drill some additional core holes to try and build out the resource potential. What we want to get to is a point where we've got an inferred resource or possibly some inferred and indicated resources that we can come out with an initial resource on this project. And I think that's our goal for 2022 is to get to that point with some additional drilling. So here's just a quick long section showing our gold grades and continuity of gold grades. And what we see is that there is an apparent continuity plunging down to the to the south, and that's not necessarily it's partly structure, but it's also stratigraphy. We know the units that are in particular hosting the mineralization here. We think that things are stepping down to the south in terms of stratigraphy. And so we see continuity in a fault structure that trends north-south and within the relatively shallowly dipping sedimentary host rock. So a lot of the drilling we've done has been designed to build out that, and we've been incredibly successful with that. 2019 and 2020, all of this drilling has been down on section, stepping down this mineralization, and we've been very successful in showing that the continuity vertically is still there. We're down to 200 to 300 meters now, and we look to continuing that drilling in the near future.
So this is one of the things too for Bolo is kind of how it looks. So one of the really cool things, you can drive here with a rear wheel drive. We're doing this next week. It's just off a main highway. You have this kind of really three kind of fists of mineralization. The main one here, the South Mine Fault, that's where we spent really all our money on to date. We've drilled a few holes down at Uncle Sam. And the cool thing about Uncle Sam is it's actually recognized by the state of Nevada as a past producing silver deposit, circa 1900. There used to be a small town there. But the actual size of Bolo, the South Mine Fault, isn't very big. It's maybe 500 meters by 500 meters. And Taylor has a report. If you look at his analyst report from Red Cloud, there's, I guess, an internal estimate for Bolo so far. I think it's about 437,000 ounces in a mineral estimate. So for us being able to have a starting maiden resource around 500,000, if we can go and put a few more holes, which is what we're doing. We have a core rig showing up. There is a core rig there right now drilling. And, it's a very accessible property. It's Carlin that's not on the Carlin trend. So far, everything we've seen has pretty much been oxide. Obviously, you get down to transitional shale at some point. But for us, this is a very, very cool property that for us to be able to put a maiden resource out on this sometime in 2022, I think is something exciting for the market. Troy, we own 100% of. We purchased it for $50,000 US and about, I think it was 900,000 shares. That's all been traded through the market, so there's really nothing left for that. And it's about a half an hour drive from Bolo. You're going towards Ely, 30 minutes away, just off the highway also. But this is a really cool project too. And I think Chris has been down here on site. You were the one that found these grab samples. What were those grab samples that we had, Chris? 45 grams gold or something?
Yeah, so when we were doing our last Bolo program, Max, we sent the crew out there, obviously, and really at this point, look, we've got some surface sampling, surface soil geochemistry, delineating some of the areas of mineralization. It's an early stage for us, but obviously some significant high grade gold samples. So this is obviously not a Carlin asset. We think of this as more of a lode vein stockwork type mineralization, significant historical underground development in the area, and we're kind of at that point now where this project deserves an initial drill program. There's never been any drilling that we're aware of on the project, so it's kind of a nice grassroots early stage asset that's sort of begging for a drill hole.
Yeah. In terms of what we spent the money on last year, this is not an out-of-date slide, but since then we obviously have completed our recent financing, $5 million. So we've moved forward with Kinsley. We've made that payment to Liberty Gold. They are now our largest shareholder and an insider. CEO Cal Everett and Chairman Dr. Mark O'Day both participated in our financing. So did I. And now we have this takeover offer in front of us. So, we've done a lot of stuff since September. We've moved quickly, and for the market conditions, I don't think I need to explain to anyone how the gold market has been. I see this as a win-win, both on the financing side and on the takeover side now. So now I think, Taylor, we can take any questions you have.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Max and Chris.
Thank you.
Now we'll turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar. Just a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type in your questions into the chat box at any time. So to start off, we talked a bit about Kinsley and some of the, the work that's been ongoing in terms of geophysics. That's kind of what's guiding you towards the, future drill targets, I guess. What are you learning as the data comes in from that program?
Yeah, Taylor, definitely in terms of, the IP program at Kinsley is obviously ongoing, and sort of as we release some results of that, some of the initial lines, and what we're seeing is that we are seeing these significant chargeability anomalies. And I think what the goal of the IP was to sort of de-risk a lot of this deep drilling that's required to make a discovery at Kinsley. It's been a challenge for all of the previous operators as well. It's, the structural and the stratigraphic model for mineralization there predicates that we need to hit mineralization in this preferred secret canyon shale, which can be quite deep, and that's costly to make a discovery. So what we wanted to do was bring something to bear that others have not done yet, try to, as we say, crack this sort of code of how do you prioritize drilling in a way that doesn't require us to drill these significantly deep holes and make those kinds of discoveries. So it's just adding that extra depth of information to the model that we have, and we believe, based on the the correspondence of some of these anomalies with existing mineralization, that's going to be a path forward in terms of prioritizing it and making it, looking at it in a new way, and providing it in particular, not just in the resource area we have now, but in the area of the project to the north. The northern 2/3 of this project is basically under tested, under drilled. It has mineralization within rocks very similar to the rock host to the Long Canyon mine, the identical units, and we have the Dunderberg and Secret Canyon shales at depth underneath there. So it's just going to add those increased assurances and helping us develop those targets.
Okay, great. So turning to Bolo a little bit, the kind of, as you alluded to, max. There's drilling ongoing, and the resource is still a kind of front and center as something to do. Is that kind of expected to continue? Provided the transaction closes and all that, that's still something that's going to be looked at by Copart.
Yeah. So what's happening with the loan essentially is they're paying $840,000 US, which is our remaining 2021 expenditure. And so we're hitting the ground as hard as we can right now. We have 2 full crews, geophysics crews down there. We have drillers down there. We have some of the Apex guys down there. I'm going down there next week to just hammer this thing out, I guess, for the rest of December, because you got to spend that money. And anything you don't spend, you have to issue a check for the remainder to the JV partner. So the goal is to maximize the spend, whatever we can do. But the rig will still continue into 2022. We're not just pulling it off December 31st. We want to finish X amount, and then those dollars will count towards our 2022 spend. And then, yes, at some point next year, I'm hoping to do a main resource on this, and we'll do the numbers and see what they have. But I'm very bullish on your estimate. I think your estimate was quite bullish, and I know we've had a lot of people look at Bolo, including all the Copar's team, which is essentially Apex also, but the Benchmark Metals group out of Edmonton have looked at it, and they really like that asset too. So it's a nice little sweetener. If we can go and increase Kinsley, which technically we have increased the resource in Kinsley, but we just haven't done an updated resource from last year's drilling. So let's say Kinsley's now sitting at 600, and we can go and get 500,000 ounces out of Bolo. Now you're at over 1 million ounces, in Nevada, in a world-class jurisdiction, and a mix of oxide and really workable sulfide. So I think that's a bonus for everyone, considering that Bolo is about 20 miles away, I think, from Round Mountain, which is owned by Kinross, which is in production. And then you have Kinsley, which is, on trend with Bald Mountain and Long Canyon, 2 other producers. So the locations are there. For us, it's just moving these forward. And what will also happen is Copar, as part of this deal, will do a large financing, which we're in discussions with now, and that will go to fund Kinsley and Bolo through 2022 as well. So this financing should let us go right into 2023 without having to go back to the market for anything, and be able to significantly step up on both programs, Bolo and Kinsley. And with Bolo, we were allowed to overspend. So if you overspend, it just minuses from future exploration dollars.
Right. Okay. And then kind of on the line of that, you mentioned that Copar liked Bolo. They like the asset. They like what they see. Going forward, would the focus still, and it's kind of what you were alluding to, but I guess just trying to clarify, but would the strategy of the combined company focus on both Kinsley or Bolo, or would there be kind of a shift potentially away from Kinsley if they like Bolo?
No. You know what? If you had all the money in the world, you'd go for everything, right? And so that's what we're doing. Is the dollars were raised for Kinsley. It's a heck of a project. It's got that resource. The met work's been done. You're on trend with 2 big producers. Kinsley, as part of that, you have Liberty Gold as our largest shareholder. That's why they're there for Kinsley. But Bolo is an asset that if you have the capital, you can do that one too. So it's full steam ahead at Kinsley. But now that we have the capital to work Bolo, we can do that too, just like we were doing for the last 2 years. But market conditions, things got expensive. Raising capital could only go for one, and you go for your flagship, right? And so that's what it was. But now if you're cashed up, might as well spread the love.
Right. Okay. Yep. Makes sense. Okay. And then, just maybe for viewers, just outline the timeline for the transaction and kind of what looking forward, what the process looks like for it.
I'm assuming a plan of arrangement, depending on if everything goes friendly. It'll be a few months of standard procedure. We're December 6th today. So the work will get done at Bolo. The lawyers are working diligently. We'll get a vote done. We'll get a concurrent financing, maybe a sub-receipt done. So everything's ready to go. And then in January, after everyone's back from Christmas, just kind of keep going on this. But, going into the Christmas season, it's kind of hard. Things get delayed. You do have to go to court twice for a plan of arrangement. And so it's just a timing thing. But from our end, we're moving as quickly as we can with Copar to move forward, but I'm assuming the process is just a standard period of time.
Great. Okay. Don't see any other questions that have come in. I'll put out a last call for any viewers that might have a question.
And anyone can email me or call me on my cell phone to chat later. So.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, nothing else coming in. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much, Max and Chris,
thank you, Taylor,
for taking the time to host the webinar today with us. And thank you to everybody on the line for tuning in with us.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.